break about now. We'll have one more full-length episode later this month, but mostly we'll have shorter project-focused shows for the summer. In each episode, we'll cover areas that require some adult preparation to do well. The first suggested project highlighted in this episode is to create a year-long plan and schedule for presenting topics, especially those that require preparation and planning ahead, such as the cultural subjects experiences, shelf work, and lessons. The second suggested project is to create work to help share visual art appreciation with your students. We'll cover more about making classroom materials in future episodes. If you aren't familiar with easy ways to mount large pictures, we'll show you how to do that. One easy way to do this project is to purchase, laminate, cut, and organize the exercises from Aileen Wolf's program that we show in this episode. Be sure to buy the small folders with the card books to make this project easiest to complete.
Now it's time to talk about, in my opinion, one of the most wonderful aspects of the Montessori environment. And these are the materials that are used to help the children learn about what is called the cultural subjects. Cultural subjects encompass a whole range of the arts and the sciences. They do vary greatly from culture to culture, especially given which particular pieces of art, which particular aspects of science are emphasized. In the cultural subjects, particularly the natural sciences, of course there is a lot of overlap from one country to another, but from my understanding, that is the reason that we call them the cultural subjects. What I'm going to do now is give a brief overview of each of the individual areas and what they encompass, and then we will begin talking more in depth about how to address the area as a whole and individual presentations. The first area we're going to discuss in the cultural subjects is that of the visual arts. Obviously, it's very, very important before the child have a lot of experience with works of art created by other people that they have some preparation. This includes the sensorial preparation of the visual sense, as well as actual experiences with cutting, drawing, attaching, otherwise known as gluing. These kinds of experiences will prepare the child to have a more intelligent appreciation of the works of art of the masters that they're going to study. I'll talk about this area more in depth, but I do believe it's important to have both larger size examples of art as well as art that the children can handle. In addition, if at all possible, through the experiences that are set up by the school or by the children's parents, I think it's very important, if there is a museum anywhere nearby, that the children do have a chance to see actual originals of art masterpieces. Of course, the arts area of the cultural subjects includes music as well. Once the children have some experience with music in many different areas, classical for sure, but also a wide variety of different schools of music, I think it also is important that the children begin to do some studies of the composers and the musical instruments, the pieces that make up the music experience. In the cultural area, we like to go from the whole to the parts, as well as from what is closest to the child to what is most abstract. We'll talk about this for the different areas, but in music, if they can have instruments on which they can make music themselves, as well as good quality recordings of music, this is a good introduction, and then moving to the more abstract aspects of music should come a little bit later. In addition to music and the visual arts, there are other arts that should be included in the child's experience. Dance is certainly the primary one that comes to mind. Music and movement is a part of most early childhood classrooms. If it is possible to actually have instruction by teachers that do have dance training, whether it's modern dance, ballet, folk dances, I think this is a way to give children a sense of that art from someone who really has put some emphasis into developing it and has brought it to a level of deep enjoyment and appreciation. If this isn't possible, I suggest that it be a part of the child's education outside of the Montessori classroom. Musical instruction, particularly study of the piano, as well as dance instruction and the martial arts, are studies outside of the Montessori classroom that I always recommend highly to parents when they're interested in giving their children a well-rounded education. In addition to the study of the arts, the cultural subjects include the social sciences and the natural and biological sciences, as well as earth science. When we're studying geography in the Montessori classroom, it's very important that we recognize the level at which the child is working. We have materials that allow the children to touch them, to feel them, and to have a wonderful experience of geography and the world around them. Although it is certainly ideal to have all of the wonderful map puzzles that are available, if you have a limited budget, it is surprising how economically you can create all of the geography materials that you need to allow the child to explore this. Hands-on experiences, such as with the landforms, that allow the children to actually pour the water and see it moving through the models of the land, are ways to give children the experiences that are truly appropriate for them at this time in their development. I've been very saddened to hear from time to time that the arts and the sciences are neglected in the Montessori classroom. Although zoology, the study of animals, and botany, the study of plants, is usually addressed in the Montessori classroom, sometimes the other sciences are neglected. It is easy to study the animals and the plants in a very hands-on way with pets in the classroom and plants in the classroom, as well as in a very analytical way through something as simple as puzzles or something as complex as cards and booklets that show the parts of the animals and the plants. But I also believe that it's important that the child have the experiences of those other aspects of science as well. To be able to study the simple machines with the use of models of levers and pulleys is very easy to bring into the classroom, even if you're not able to purchase manufactured materials. These are things that you can easily put together in the classroom itself. Obviously, from what you see here, I do not believe that a material needs to have been originated by Montessori to be useful in the child's study of the cultural subjects. There are many wonderful models that help the child understand human anatomy, as well as many other aspects of the natural world and the physical sciences that can be useful for the child to explore and are very appropriate for them to use between the ages of 3 and 6. In addition to the models and the cards that help the children understand the facts about sciences, make sure that experiments are included in your classroom. The sinking and floating objects are one of the simplest ones that we have available in our classroom. It's very easy to set up experiments with water, magnets, optics, such as lenses that magnify or reduce. When the children have hands-on experiences with these things, it does make them more aware of the world around them, and most importantly, it gives them a taste for science. It gives them an interest in the more abstract studies in that area that will come later. The children enjoy the subjects of the cultural area very, very much. I believe that it's very important to introduce these in several different ways. In many Montessori classrooms, it's considered not appropriate to have topics or themes that are studied at different times of the year. I can understand this, and I also support the idea that materials in all of the cultural subjects area need to be available to the children at all times. Any child who happens to be interested in studying animals or plants or some of the beginning studies in physics should have materials on the shelves available to them. There should always be materials out on the shelves for the children to appreciate art. However, there are some different ways of studying these subjects that it is much easier if you have a calendar laid out for your year. For example, if you do want to study insects and bring something in such as caterpillars that then will spin their chrysalises and become butterflies, that's not something you can have in your classroom at all times, particularly if you live somewhere that has a strong winter. So that would be the kind of thing to schedule. Even though I would like to see the parts of the insect cards or something out in the classroom at all times for the children to study insects, everything you have doesn't have to be out at all times, and in my opinion shouldn't be. So there may be months where you have many dinosaur materials out, and perhaps that's the month before or after you visit the museum in your area that has some dinosaur exhibits. There may be times that you want to emphasize geography a little bit more, and you have more materials out for that. Perhaps that's a time when you're actually going to do a walking tour at the city center where you live. So these are ways that I do believe that themes can be very useful in the Montessori classroom and can be very helpful for the teacher to organize both the materials on the shelves and the things that she presents on the line. This is certainly something that each individual teacher should decide for herself, but I do have some schedules and some suggestions of ways to rotate through some of the different materials that you're not able to have out at all times so that you can do that in a manageable fashion. In addition to having themes that you study over time with large subject areas such as art appreciation and music appreciation, it's helpful to move through those things sequentially. You can't have all the music available to the children all the time, although with our current advances in technology, having a listening center where children are able to listen to music through headphones, even in the environment itself, is a wonderful addition, and I strongly encourage that. And perhaps if you do have the adequate technology, you can have it where a child can listen to just about any piece of music that you have available at any time. However, it's also very useful to study music in the group. Being able to move to music together, being able to listen to a piece of music, and then discuss how it made you feel briefly, in the case of younger children, obviously, is a very worthwhile activity that I encourage in the classroom. I'm going to talk just briefly about the art area because I believe that it's very important to expose the children to art masterpieces. There's a couple of different ways to do this. The individual pieces of art that are available now in very, very inexpensive reproductions are amazing. I recently purchased an art book for under $10 that has probably 200 different pieces of art that I could cut out and mount and post in the classroom. If you do want to take that approach, you may want to choose a size of board that's very easy to manage. This happens to be an 11 by 11 size. 11 by 14 might be another option. What that allows you to do is, even though the matting is a little bit awkward on some of the art that isn't square in orientation, it allows you to have frames that you can actually slip the art into and change them out. There are frames available to purchase, and it's even possible to make frames where the piece of art can just be slipped in and then can be pulled out again for you to be able to change up the art that the children are being exposed to. I do believe that it's important for children to see those actual masterpieces, and the sequence that I would suggest is that children be able to see in a local museum actual original pieces of art, as well as having art experiences on their own, and then have the exposure to the reproductions. It's also nice when things go the other way. If you do have a museum locally that has postcards that are available to allow you to purchase reproductions of the art that the child can see in the museum, it's lovely for them to have exposure to the reproduction in the classroom and then discover the reproduction actually on exhibit at the museum when they visit. A lot of what I have learned about presenting art appreciation in the classroom comes from the work of Aileen Wolf. She is a wonderful educator that has come up with a delightful project to introduce art appreciation to children in a way that they can handle by using postcards. She has a DVD, she has many books of postcards that all that you need to do is cut them apart, put them in folders, and place them in the environment for the child to use. I believe that her approach is excellent. I believe that It is one of the few pieces of groundbreaking work in the Montessori area that's been done that really has no equal. And so I heartily endorse her program, and I use it extensively. I do believe that you will get the most out of it if you do obtain postcards besides the ones that are available directly from her company, so that you can begin to create the collection on your own and develop your own art appreciation. That is one of the things that I enjoy about her approach, which is she's very honest about the fact that when she first started doing this, she needed to flip the postcards over and check the artist and the schools of art and things, because she hadn't mastered them before she brought them into the classroom with the children, and the children were fine with that. They loved the idea that she was learning the art while they were learning the art. There are a couple of things in her approach that I would do a little bit differently. I mentioned one already. I do believe that exposing a child to the real thing first is ideal if possible. So having them experience original masterpieces in the museum before they're working with the reproductions, and then going the other direction later on, is something that I would encourage, but I don't think it matters a lot. One thing that I do feel strongly, because of my reading instruction background, is that I do not want to develop the habit of word guessing in children. So although I use extensively the artist names and the paintings names in the work that I have purchased that Aileen created, I believe that that should come after the children have a strong sense of sounding out the words and are actually ready to understand the unusual spellings and the way that words are different in different languages. Obviously, a lot of the artist names of famous artist names are French, Italian, and to explain to the children the conventions of those languages, such as the fact that the last consonant in many French names is not pronounced and why that happens. I believe this child should be at that level before those artist names are introduced to them with any kind of real attention, or where the child is required to actually match the name and do that to complete the piece of work. Using the examples that have the artist name printed there without requiring the child to match it or draw attention to it, I believe can happen at any time. But if the child is actually going to be matching the names of the artists or the works to the pieces, I think they need to be quite advanced in their reading and be ready to have those foreign spellings explained to them at some level. So that pretty much covers the art appreciation area. We are going to cover separately the art area and take that as a little bit of an extension of practical life and a little bit as an extension of the cultural subjects area, because it is a little bit of both. More of the color experimentation to learn color theory is more cultural arts, whereas learning to cut properly is more of a practical life experience and an extension of that area.